Oh, hello and welcome to another fun-filled edition of Adam's Music Box. And today I want to talk about something that I think we kind of need to change our mentality on. And this is the concept of the history of recorded music. I say this because I'm a passionate listener of recorded music, as I think most of us are, whether you're on YouTube or Spotify or XM radio or whatever, you're listening to recorded music. Most of us have listened to it all of our lives. Most of us, I think pretty much all of us on this planet, unless we live in some sort of deep jungle, have never been in a world where the easy access to recorded music didn't exist. But that wasn't always the case. Now, recorded music is one thing, but what about the broader picture of what I call music without being in the physical presence of a musician? Now, that's a mouthful. We might have to find an acronym for it or some other way to express it. But when we really want to talk about the origins of everything from our Spotify's to our high quality downloads, our DSDs, and our 24 192 FLACs, and everything that came before it, the magnetic tape, the phonograph record, everything, literally everything. We need to talk about what came even before the Edison cylinder, one of the first recorded sound mediums, and it sounded terrible. The fidelity was horrible, but of course it was a start. But what if I were to tell you that an ultra high fidelity format for listening to music without being in the presence of a musician existed and existed before Edison's cylinder recordings? Well, we have to go to the 19th century and we have to look at things like the fairground organ, the barrel organ, the dance organ, and later on, a successor to all of these instruments, the orchestrion. And we can also look in smack dab in the middle of this history to the most popular of all of these ways to listen to music without a musician, the player piano. Now, why is this significant? Well, for reasons that most people, including most of these snobbish historians, never really talk about. Most people who write the history books of these things just talk about these things and they talk about their socioeconomic importance, but they never talk about their importance for people who love music, who really love listening to music. And that to me is the most significant thing because prior to the inventions of all of these instruments that could be played without the presence of a musician, the only way for anyone to hear music would either be to go into the presence of a musician or to become a musician oneself. So that means, I'm going to play myself the guitar. That way I can hear music. I'm going to play myself the piano. I'm going to sing. I'm going to go to an orchestral concert. I'm going to go to a village pub and hear people, play music. But in the 19th century, this began to change with some of these inventions. And the player piano was the most commercially successful because it was the most compact. People could have it in their homes. You could have it in a saloon. You could have it in a hotel lobby. You could have it in a restaurant. You could have it in a sophisticated clothing shop. And the advantage of this player piano compared to the Edison cylinders that were around in the late 19th century is that while the Edison cylinders sounded like absolute crap, the player piano sounded perfect because it was an actual piano. And so sonically, pressing a middle C with a human finger or mechanically pressing a middle C with the mechanism of the player piano, it's going to sound pretty much the same. It's the same instrument. Now, imagine how revolutionary that was. So revolutionary that one of the reasons that a lot of people were skeptical of early recorded sound, whether it be the Edison cylinders or other contraptions, is because, well, people thought, what's the point? This is sort of going backwards. Yes, it's technically a recording of something I want to hear, but the quality is so low. I can buy a player piano and I can get the rolls, which are like elongated sheets of paper, which have different songs or compositions on them, and many of them were even played by the composers themselves. One of my favorite composers, Scriabin, recorded a lot of rolls for player pianos, as did did many other great composers. So not only could you get the sound of the authentic instrument in perfect fidelity, because it is an actual instrument playing live, if you will. There's no live musician, but the instrument is in your place, so it's live music of sorts. And so people thought, well, the player piano is endlessly more sophisticated than this recorded technology. And if I go and hear a dance organ or a fair organ, not only will I hear piano-like sounds, but I'll hear traditional organ sounds, saxophone sounds, trumpet sounds, all sorts of percussion, because these organs were very, very sophisticated. Think the sounds you hear at a merry-go-round. You might not be into the style of music that a lot of those organs play because once they fell out of fashion, they didn't record the rolls that went into them for newer pieces of music. But just think sonically, they're loud, they're clear, it's high fidelity. It's real fidelity. You could argue it's better than high fidelity because it's real. They are actual instruments being played mechanically. Um, and this just goes to show you that there's really nothing new under the sun. We talk about AI, but what is a self-playing mechanical instrument? Play a piano, a fairground organ, a dance organ, a barrel organ, an orchestrion. What is that if not artificial intelligence of a sort? Because it's using a role which mimics the original human behavior, the behavior of playing music. And what does it create? It creates a lifelike experience for those consuming it. It's early AI again. Hence the argument that these self-playing mechanical instruments were more sophisticated than early sound recordings. Now, to be frank, it was really not until you have magnetic tape that sound recording gets anywhere near as lifelike as these self-playing mechanical instruments. And it was only in the 1950s when this technology became widely available for the general public. Magnetic tape came out in the 30s, but it was limited mainly to Germany because it was a German invention. The company was called Magnetophone, and the ability to buy an open reel quarter-inch tape of music and listen to it, that didn't really happen till the 50s. And it was only then that you had a recorded medium that you could bring into your home that sounded lifelike. We were getting better and better. Obviously, the shellac disc recordings of the 1920s, powered by electronic microphones. This was vastly superior to the acoustic recordings prior to that. Optical film recording was very good for the time, but even so, there were no. It's still you could hear the elements, the physical elements, scratches, all that sort of thing, still relatively low fidelity. Which, if you're listening to an artist you love, like I do, I listen to Mangelberg recordings, Furtwängler recordings from that era. You put up with it because the musicians are what you want to hear. Um, but when it comes to the actual sound quality, it was really over 50 years after the advent of the earliest forms of recorded sound that you could really hear something in the way it sounded when it was performed live. And perhaps then it's no coincidence, it was really only after the Second World War when the sale of player pianos and the installation of these fairground organs and even the popularity of human played theater organs started to decline because we really had to wait a long time till the quality of recorded sound could match that you could get with these mechanical self-playing instruments. So when we talk about the history of recorded sound, I think we should really reframe it in terms of the history of hearing music without being in the presence of a musician. And in that sense, we had to go backwards before we went forwards, in the sense that the player piano sounded good, the early recorded sound did not. What's the significance of that? I think there's a lot. I think that it shows that what goes around comes around. It shows that every generation tends to think of itself and its inventions as the very best. But sometimes we're going in circles. Sometimes we're trying to catch up with other things. And sometimes it's simply a matter of making what already is perfect quality less expensive to produce and more compact and convenient to use. So that's what I think. Let me know what you think. Like, subscribe. We will see you next time. Take care.